Hey, I know what we're gonna analyze. The episodes in season 5. Hope it brings you laughter. This is Afterferb. Welcome to Afterferb, the Phineas and Ferb discussion podcast. It's me, it's Alex again. Just can't get rid of me. And on the other side of the continent, we've got Andrew and we've got Zach, but they're in separate rooms today.
Yeah, this time we are not recording in the same room because Zach hates me.
No, let's not spread falsehoods. No, I'm in a separate room because I woke up with a 100.6 fever. I wish it was 104 just for the sake of the podcast, but then again, I'd probably have to go to the hospital, so maybe I'm fine with this level.
Wait, 106 or 100.6?
Oh, 100.6. I'm sorry. No.
Okay, jeez. I was like, Zach, you're dying.
Yeah. No.
You said point. Zach said point.
Thank you.
Okay, but you wish it was 104.
Yeah, just for the sake of storytelling.
Or at least 100.4.
It was 100.4 earlier, but that doesn't roll off the tongue. There's 100.4
100.4 is slightly closer to the
days.
actual amount of summer vacation days.
Yeah. But anyway, I did not want to call out of this podcast because I was very specifically excited to talk about Dry Another Day. I mean, I've loved every episode so far on the revival, but I think this one was particularly very, very strong.
And I think it's very fitting also that you have a very high temperature when you're talking about the episode that's about the weather having a very high temperature too.
There's the segue.
Like
this
I
is
said,
why Alex is our
storytelling.
host.
Was this on purpose?
No, No, I'm dying up here. I am in so much pain.
I actually drugged Zach last night so that we can make this segue.
Oh, thanks, bud. You're a real artist.
Yeah. All right, so Dry Another Day. That's what we're talking about today. Now, okay, I have to say, I have a feeling this is going to be an unpopular opinion. Now, I loved the first several episodes. I loved Submarine. I loved, License to Bust. This is the first one that I was kind of like lukewarm on. No pun intended. I don't know. It didn't quite click for me. I liked the Doof scheme. I think it was a funny Doof scheme. So that was probably the high point. Apart from that, though, I don't know. There was it wasn't really clicking. I don't know, but I want to hear what you guys think.
I really like this one. I think something about the fact that the whole aesthetic of the episode is just that it's like way too hot. It kind of served as a little bit of a throwback to like season 1 where they do the beach party just because it's too dang hot in the summer. I think setting it in a water park made it very visually distinct. I also might be biased now that I live in LA, but just like them going through a heat wave, I found to be a little bit relatable. I think the story as a whole, not necessarily groundbreaking, like it is more of the cookie cutter Phineas and Ferb formula, at least compared to the first couple episodes, but I still thought it was really well executed. I like this one.
I knew I was going to like this episode because I'm a huge fan of water parks. That's one of my favorite things to do during the summer. And on top of that,
Zach is always trying to get us to go to water parks.
Yes, and I work at a theme park. And so any episode that's about themed entertainment and that kind of world is going to pique my interest. But I also really liked this episode because I feel like it reintroduced a lot of running gags and side characters. I mean, we saw Stacy, we saw the farmer and the wife, we saw the
Dink
zebra.
Wickerson.
Okay, they've given Dink Wickerson more to do in this season than they've done the entirety of the original run.
Yeah.
Which I think is very funny. Something that did disappoint me, though, was Linda says very early on that she's going to go return something to Charlene. And I was like, oh, we're going to see Charlene. And then that just never happened.
Yeah, that is true. The cake pan. I thought we were going to see Charlene and the cake pan because they took that cooking class.
I was so ready for
too.
an Allison Janney appearance.
But not to be.
Maybe we'll get a like Isabella and the Temple of Sap Bubble Boys style follow up to this episode where we see the entire thing from Charlene's perspective.
Probably.
Oh my God,
I think there's a very good chance that that's going to happen.
I don't see why.
I don't see why it wouldn't. But I mean, Andrew, what you were saying before about like the throwback to the backyard beach and stuff like that. That's kind of part of the reason I felt like about it, because the backyard beach was such like a huge thing. And you think about other kind of like mixing hot and cold episodes, like Swinter comes to mind, and it's this kind of like enormous, all-consuming, like change the entire backyard type of thing. And this was like, yeah, they're rolling on an icy wheel. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. I won't complain too much.
I like that this one takes you all throughout Danville, though, because like Swinter and Backyard Beach literally just take place in the backyard. This kind of takes a similar concept, but it explores the rest of the city, which I think led to some really good moments. And so I think it was different enough that I actually, quite honestly, didn't even make the Lawn Gnome Beach Party of Terror comparison until Andrew said it 45 seconds ago.
Yeah, I do think that with a show like this that's been running for 5 seasons, running into like thematic repeats is kind of inevitable. Like you said, the Swinter, it also reminded me a little bit because there's like, you have Candace wearing the winter clothes while she's racing through what is otherwise a very, very hot day. That said, I feel like setting it in a water park made it a little bit distinct, if nothing else. And it's not the only time that the show has done that. Like, I forget if it was in this episode or Deconstructing Doof, but like Perry's lair entrance being through the shower, like they've done a handful of Perry bathroom entrances at this point. I think what matters more is just that if like the jokes and specific character moments are unique, to me that's enough to make it stand out. And I think that it did otherwise stand out.
Yeah. This is kind of a jump ahead to Deconstructing Doof, but I did find it strange that in the pair of episodes, both of the Perry's lair entrances involved him being cold, because one was like him in the lemonade cube, and then the other one was the cold shower.
That is true.
Well, as we know, the platypus can swim in frigid water.
Well, also, I feel like the show does not utilize Perry's platypus qualities enough. Usually he's just like a character that fights, but in this episode, him swimming through the Dingleberry oil was kind of fire. That was a pretty good utilization of the fact that Perry is a platypus. I know that's way at the end of the episode, but I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
I really like that.
Oh yeah, he is a platypus, isn't he? He is semi-aquatic.
It's like whenever they would acknowledge that SpongeBob is actually a sponge.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know about that. I've barely watched any SpongeBob, but I'll take your word for it. So I want to talk about this Doofenshmirtz scheme a little bit because I really like it. I think it's kind of like, it's quintessential in a way because you have, first of all, backstory. I think we actually got also like some more Gimbelstrumpf lore in the sense that they use Dingleberry oil.
This is the first backstory of the season, right?
It is,
yes.
But I was disappointed that there was only really one shot of Doof looking outside the pool. I kind of wanted to see more of the Gimbelstrumpf aesthetic.
Yeah, I get that. I could have been nice to see like one shot of Roger's birthday party, maybe. But anyway,
Yeah.
we've got basically they use Dingleberry oil for everything. What were the things he listed? Like verb conjugation was one of them. I love that joke.
I found it so funny that like comedy comes in threes, and yet verb conjugation was the second one.
Yes.
Because the third one was candles. But then he had the add-on of, but surprisingly, not Dingleberry candles, which I was like, okay. But verb conjugation got a huge laugh out of me.
Same here. And when you really break down the scheme, what he's really doing, he's not trying to ruin anyone's fun at the water park. He's just replacing the water in the water park, which he could have fun at the water park anyway. He's replacing it with a different liquid related to his childhood that everyone can still have just a slightly different kind of park fun in, that is the one that he had missed out on. It's very... I wish honestly they kind of like leaned into how funny that was a little bit more than they did.
That being said, I think the moment where Doof makes all the water go away, legitimately one of the most dangerous things he's ever done on the show. Like people in the lazy river falling onto concrete, or the kids piling up on the slide. Like,
okay.
As someone who works at a theme park, I was like, dude, he could have killed people there.
As someone who works at a theme park, Zach does not condone replacing water with Dingleberry oil.
Yeah.
I just want to say, while we're on the topic of that moment where all the water gets replaced and they have that kid who flies off the water slide, that gave me like war flashbacks. I have a brief story I'll share. When I was a kid, maybe like 10 or 11, I went to Blizzard Beach at Walt Disney World, and they had a water slide there. It's a great park. However, I almost died there. It was really weird because I feel like for the most part Disney's very protective with like the safety of the rides and everything, but at this water park they had this really, really tall slide that we waited in line for. It goes down at a fairly steep angle, like just visualize a 45-degree slope, except right in the middle there's a little hill And I think what's supposed to happen is like you just stay on the water slide and there's a bit of a hump and then you stay continuing down on the steep part. But when I wrote it, when I went over that hill, I caught air, like a significant amount of air. And there was no safety guards or netting or anything on the side of the slide. And I'm fairly certain that had I leaned my body to the left or right, I would have fallen off and died. According to my mom, people who were watching me go off the slide were like gasping when they saw me go down.
I've caught air on Slush Gusher before. You were fine.
No, but okay, had I leaned to the left or right, I don't think there's anything that would have protected me.
Okay, then again, I wasn't there, but I remember doing that slide after your story and being like, "Oh, yeah, you do catch a little water there." But I not little water, a little bit of air. But
it might have been the height and weight that I was at like age 11. I don't know, man. Maybe I've embellished it in my head, but that was traumatizing. And so when the kid flew off there, I will say I did not land on a bed of nails or cactus or a mattress. So
have you been on a water slide since then?
Oh yeah, I've gotten back on water slides. It didn't like completely scar me. It just scarred me a little bit.
And the best Disney attractions do that. They don't scar you for life, but they make you a little bit scared.
That was a Disney thing?
Yes, but it's a Disney water park.
Blizzard Beach is one of Walt Disney World's 2 water parks.
Okay, well, I don't know anything about Disney water parks. So.
I will say they cost more than $40.
Yeah, did you need a wristband to get in?
No, you do not need a wristband. But for 2025, you if you stay at a Disney Parks hotel, you get free admission on the day of your check-in.
We better be getting sponsored for this.
I just became a walking advertisement. Well, not walking. I'm sitting in bed with a fever. A sitting advertisement.
A sitting advertisement with a fever. Yeah, Andrew, do you have any thoughts on the $40 entrance fee into the water park?
Just I miss the days when you actually could get into a water park for $40.
Yeah, here's the thing though. We don't know for sure that the total entrance is $40. All we know is that Perio's Doofenshmirtz $40. So maybe Doof is covering part of the cost for Perry because of just how nice it is.
I'm fairly certain there was like a sign on the wall that said $40 entrance fee.
There was a sign.
Never mind. All right, theory broken.
Not to crush your creativity there.
It's okay.
I do find it really funny how they both have to abide by like paying to get in legally. And you're right, Alex, that like Doof's scheme, it feels a little bit less evil and more just about honoring his childhood in this one, because like he's not breaking into the water park. He's not like trying to ruin anyone's day. He's just trying to make himself have a little bit of fun. And it's almost a little bit more heartbreaking when you look at it from that angle.
Yo, we can get into Hurricane Harbor for $49. We should do that. Sorry, I'm looking up water park tickets.
Zach's looking at water park prices now.
Oh my god.
Wait, yo. At Raging Waters, we can get in for $39.99. Oh my goodness. You totally can. Let's go.
Okay, I stand corrected. This episode is accurate.
Wow, that's actually extremely accurate. Yeah,
just
you
not
should.
Blizzard Beach.
Yeah. I think the one thing that Doof should have done slightly differently is to have an innator that immediately just turns the water into the Dunkleberry oil. But then I guess he wouldn't have had to buy up all the Dunkleberry oil. So
I wouldn't be Doofenshmirtz if the plan wasn't at least a little bit unnecessarily convoluted.
There you go. There you have it. All right, I have a question about the talking zebra.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to take away from this that the talking zebra is like officially not a hallucination now because the talking zebra like stays there after Candace is gone, or was that already established?
Well, I think that was kind of the joke in his original appearance, was like because it was one of the camping episodes where Candace touches the orange moss, right, and she starts seeing things, and it's like they lead you to believe that she's seeing the zebra because she's hallucinating, and then I think there's a joke at the end of the episode that the zebra is still there and Candace is just like that. Right.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason I forgot that's where that came from, and I thought he was like first and second dimension or something.
The zebra appears in like the second episode during Candace's dream sequence. Wait, no.
It's Monster from the Id, I think, is what you're thinking of.
But what's the one where he goes, "I voted for you, Kevin"? What episode is that?
Oh, yes. He does also appear. I forget which one that is.
If I had a nickel for every time I watched a traditionally animated thing in 2025 that had a character drinking boba, I'd have 2 nickels. Which is
I also got Looney Tunes. Yeah.
By the way, everybody, if it's still in theaters, go support The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. Support traditional animation. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's excellent. It's definitely not still in theaters, but you should watch it wherever you can.
Okay, yeah. First appearance, The Ballad of Badbeard. I'm not talking about the talking zebra. Then the rest. It's weird. I'm on the Phineas and Ferb fandom wiki page right now, and all his appearances are listed as cameo, except for the first one, which is listed as first appearance. Then he makes a quote cameo in Phineas and Ferb Get Busted, Nerds of a Feather, Wizard of Odd, Roller Coaster the Musical, Second Dimension, Monster from the Id, and Dry Another Day.
Yeah, wow. It's been since like Monster from the Id is like season 3, right? So it's been a minute since we've seen him.
Yeah, because it's been a while. Oh, who was someone on Twitter? It might have been Jonathan. It might have been someone else. Sorry for not remembering who it was, but made a very great point that the zebra should have, or if not yet, should in the future appear in Hamster and Gretel and call Kevin Candace.
Wait, that would be so good.
There would be no
That'd be
reason
very
not
funny.
to do that.
Yeah, no, that would be great. We got a little bit of a Hamster and Gretel reference in this episode again with one of the inner tubes.
Oh,
We did?
what was it?
Oh, was it the one
It
that
was
looked
just one
like
of the
hamster?
Yeah, one of the kids' inner tubes just had Hamster's face on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know sometimes like people pointed out like incidental characters in Hamster and Gretel or Phineas and Ferb are Milo Murphy's Law characters, and it's often unclear whether it's an intentional reference or if they were just going through a library of incidental characters and were like, oh, we'll use this one.
Yeah, I feel like more often than not it's probably that latter option.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of highly niche characters like the zebra who calls Candace Kevin, I got weirdly excited when Dink Winkerson showed up at the beginning of the episode. I'm sure at least part of that is the fact that I wrote Dink Winkerson as a character into M.W.C.A. We also had this running gag in the original production of my musical where we would call him Twink Winkerson, from the person who was
Happy Pride.
playing him. A member of the queer community. Anyway, I do want to point out, though, I know we only briefly touched on the animation when we were talking about Summer Blockbuster. I gotta say, the first, 20 seconds of this episode where Dink Winkerson comes in, it looks bad. I don't know what happened, but it's like this really cheap Flash animation. It reminds me a lot of, the second Cliptastic Countdown with Kelly Osbourne. Did you guys notice that, too?
No, I was busy looking at the news ticker at the bottom, seeing if they were doing a BoJack Horseman-esque thing of having a bunch of jokes. And guess what? They did.
Yeah. Okay, maybe it was just me. Maybe I'm only the one that notices this stuff. But this episode, I think, was a really weird example of part of the episode looks terrible, and then part of the episode looks legitimately really good. Like all the sequences where they're going luging, or that bit where Candace jumps in front of the sun. Anyway, maybe that's just me, but I think it's really weird that this season, from shot to shot, can vary immensely, and I think this episode was one of the most outstanding examples of that.
I mean, I never noticed that until unless someone points it out to me, oh, this animation looks really good and or bad, and I watch it and be like, okay, yeah, I guess so, if you say so.
Yeah, I know Julia also noticed it when I was watching this episode with her, but anyway, I just wanted to comment on that.
Mm-hmm. Zach, I know you were greatly anticipating the return of the farmer and his wife, so I imagine you were quite pleased to see them make their triumphant return.
I do like how they have they've kind of sacrificed the actual verbiage of what did you think blank was just gonna fall out of the sky. Now it just happens, or where did you think you were gonna get this from? Part of me wishes that they were still using it that exact sentence every single time, but then again, I kind of like seeing them in fudging with the formula a little bit.
I mean, it is still it's not really changing the formula that much. It's just a changing of a few
The
words.
verbiage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
no,
changing,
the joke
changing.
is exactly the same, but
I liked that the way that they portrayed vegetarians was that they're all hipsters. I always think that's really funny. It reminds me of a SpongeBob gag that did a similar thing when the Flying Dutchman becomes vegetarian and he's just this health nut.
What did we think? Wait, so I'm trying to remember the context for this is they were just hosting a bunch of vegetarians at their farm or whatever. And they were like, all right, we're going to feed all these vegetarians a big salad. And then last second, the farmer's wife is like, I can't believe you didn't make the salad better. You just put lettuce and vinegar. You need some kind of sauce. What were you thinking?
Yeah. I guess an interesting nuance is that this is possibly the only time where we see the farmer and his wife hosting an attraction that people are actually attending.
Yeah, they're already there.
Good for them. Their business has grown in the last year.
I loved the I asked for mine on the side.
Yeah, that was really
Love
good.
that guy.
I want to quickly give a shout out to the sequence where Candace is skiing through the town. I thought was just really fun. It was also the first like song just sung by Danny Jacob, so it felt very at home being in an episode like this. But I specifically I forget if it's during the song. I think it's shortly after. When Dink Wickerson's news truck pulls up to Candace and Candace gets excited about the fact that she's going to be on TV. I love that that's a character trait that they remembered of Candace, because it's not often focused on, but especially in like season 1 in Flop Stars and Lights Candace Action, like Candace wanting to be famous is a part of her character. So the fact that they've maintained that character trait all these years later made me really happy.
See, I didn't read it into that. Like, I thought she was just like, oh, great, I'll be on TV and my mom will be able to see it. I didn't really pick up on the, like, oh, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to be on the news angle.
I think it can be interpreted as both. I think it's
Probably.
consistent with the character and also consistent with the structure. Also, I realized something I'm surprised I haven't mentioned yet. This episode has probably one of my favorite lines in the entire series, which is when the shark jumps over
yes.
Doofenshmirtz and Perry, and Doofenshmirtz goes, "Wow, the shark jumped us." I think that's a really very subtle dig at people who were saying, oh, why are they doing the revival? They jumped the shark. Do they have new stories to tell? Yes, they absolutely have new stories to tell. And then on top of that, Perry appearing at the end looking like Fonzie from Happy Days. Just a very good cherry on top with a very good jumping the shark joke.
Yeah, because that shows the origin of jumping the shark, right?
Yes, in season 5, Fonzie jumps over a shark, and people were like, what is this? What's the point of this? And then also Scott Bio starts appearing in the series, and, we don't like Scott Bio, so that's a whole other thing.
Whenever I think about jumping the shark, I always think of I guess one of multiple Quentin Reviews Sam and Cat videos, where he talks about the episode where they got, multiple characters from iCarly and Victorious on, and to have literally this stunt where, I don't remember which character, there's going to be one, there's going to be another, like leaping over a pool of like murderous piranhas or something. And they were just very much leading into the fact like, yeah, we're jumping the shark.
Yeah, I definitely read it as meta commentary in this episode.
Phineas and
and I thought it
Ferb
was
would
very
never
clever.
jump the shark.
Are there any last thoughts for anyone to share on Dry Another Day?
Yeah, I got one. I think this has one of my favorite Ferb moments from the entire season, when he, like Indiana Jones style, or Woody at the end of Toy Story 2 style, saves Baljeet at the top of the luge, and then Baljeet goes, "Thank you, no problem." Like, it's very Ferb. It's badass with minimal talking, and I was like, there we go. That's Ferb's role on the show, and I was happy that they gave him that moment.
We were talking to Carly last night, and she was pointing out that there's a couple of Baljeet Ferb moments in this season. So I wonder if that's going to spark any new ships.
I noticed that. I was like, oh, are they hinting at Ferb-Jeet now? Is this in play?
I mean, listen, my headcanon is Baljeet is bisexual and Buford's gay, so it would track for me. Even though I think
you're on
he and
Buford now, or you're just switched over to Bujeet?
Oh yeah, no, I guess the Buford comment was irrelevant, but I'm saying I think Baljeet is bi, so I could see him being charmed by Ferb.
Absolutely. I mean, me personally, I find it very difficult to ship Baljeet with anyone except for Wendy Stinglehopper.
Love her.
But I mean,
got a big hat.
I won't complain. Yeah, she has a really big hat. I don't know if anyone's hurt. Man, that's my one wish for this Phineas and Ferb revival.
To find a girl with a really big hat.
No, that Wendy Stinglehopper. Well, I guess yes, kind of. Because my wish is that Wendy Stinglehopper makes a return appearance.
All right, post down in the comments below. Do we think Wendy Stinglehopper is going to make an appearance this season?
Do y'all think that's an unintentional or intentional Little Mermaid reference because Scuttle calls a fork a dinglehopper, or am I looking way too much into this?
Well, if it was Wendy Dinglehopper, she'd have a really big fork.
Oh, you're right.
I don't know.
Never mind. Okay.
Yeah, so post in the comments below all the best reasons that Wendy Stinglehopper could return, and all the reasons that she should, and none of the reasons that she shouldn't or won't.
Wait. Isn't there like a an episode coming up later on that's like all about hats.
Oh, that's true.
Well,
Oh my goodness, Wendy Stinglehopper is going to.
wait,
return.
are you talking about the
Stinglehopper will
haberdasher
return.
or a different one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, have you guys not watched Haberdasher yet?
Yeah, so I guess I've seen half of the season so far.
I've
I guess
not.
for those listening, if they're really big Phineas and Ferb fans, they probably watched all the episodes at this point and they can laugh at how wrong we are.
Yeah, I assumed that I assume most people listening have already seen the entire first half of season 5. So I guess spoilers, but Wendy Stinglehopper's not in Haberdasher. Sorry.
Aww.
What's even the point?
Yeah, seriously.
All right, so comment below if you think Wendy Stinglehopper will appear in episodes 11 through 20 of Phineas and Ferb.
Comment below if you think Wendy Stinglehopper will be in the Haberdasher.
Even though it's already out.
You already said it, dude.
Yeah.
All right. Should we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, let's move on to half
Yeah,
number
I'm
2 of
wrapping
this,
up my
of
chicken
this
noodle
clump. We've got Deconstructing Doof. This is a big one in a way. This is kind of a crazy one. All right, I think one thing that I think we should start with before we bring our guest in, because we do have a guest with us here in the chat who's going to talk about this episode with us momentarily.
He'll be on the microphone, not in the chat.
Yes, not in our chat.
He has been talking in the chat of our Discord messages.
That is
though.
true. That is true. I just want to shout out, little fun detail is that this psychologist character is named Dr. Mosley Shammai, and the three of us actually met Shammai Mosley, production assistant, that this psychologist is named after. So that was a fun detail.
He was the person that we interacted with when we did our tour of the Disney TV animation building. We reached out to him and he arranged it for us.
Wait,
So shout
I
out
didn't
Shammai.
piece that together. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Shout out Shammai.
Shout out to Shammai. All right, you know him from
bring
Podcast Without a Cool Acronym. You know him from Orlando. You know him as probably world's biggest Ghost and Molly McGee fan. It's Chandler. Woo!
Woo!
Hey,
Hello!
Chandler.
Hang on, I had to grab my Molly plush, which I know you cannot see because this is an audio podcast and not a video podcast. I also
We see
actually
it,
my
and it's delightful.
yes. Well, my mom got me a new Squishmallow friend. This platypus Squishmallow, this tie-dye platypus Squishmallow that I'm holding. His name is Mitch the Platypus.
Oh, that's really good.
A platypus? Mitch the Platypus!
What is the size of Mitch? How if you had to describe Mitch in a specific size?
Small.
Interesting.
Not
Okay,
like
good to know.
not like tiny, but small. It's not big, Mitch.
So if y'all are shopping for Mitch, he wears a size small.
All right, so Chandler, I have a question for you. Was there a specific reason that you wanted to talk about Deconstructing Doof, given the choice of multiple episodes?
I mean, this episode is just awesome. It's it's so much fun to have someone basically crack the formula of the show who previously was not a party of this at all, and have it just break him basically.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, one time.
More or less, it's kind of similar to what happens in Musical Without a Cool Acronym, where Candace kind of figures out that it's Doof that's causing stuff to disappear.
I'm glad we have an unbiased third party to make the connection between this episode and Musical Without a Cool
Yes!
Acronym, because I didn't want to just
absolutely.
be totally egotistical and point out the similarity. But yeah, that is something that I wanted to explore in my musical, was like, what would happen if Candace and Doofenshmirtz actually figured out the reason for each other's misfortune. And this episode
reason
goes
for
about
the
it in a
scheme.
completely different manner, but I think it's a super interesting concept.
It's so good. So the whole episode's kind of presented as a flashback. There's this big event where the therapist that Candace and Doofenshmirtz have both been seeing is like revealing all of his findings, which I know you wrote this in your notes, but it's like, wouldn't this kind of be a HIPAA thing? But it's like, well, they're both anonymous
Yeah.
to each other, I suppose.
I think one of the funniest gags is at the beginning of this episode when the therapist is just like starting his speech, and he shows images of Candace and Doofenshmirtz that are censored, but like in the smallest way possible. Like it's literally just a small black line over their eyes. I thought that was
I'm gonna give this therapist credit real quick, because there is a line later in the episode where he's like doing all the like the wall with all the pictures and whatnot, where he's like, "I plan to reveal with all of Danville with my patient's permission."
Yes.
So he kind of has a. So he asked for Candace and Doof's permission.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
And I feel like it would make sense that Candace and Doof would sign off on that, because presumably Candace wants everyone to know about this, and Doof wants the world to know he's evil. So in a weird way, it makes sense that they'd be fine with I guess breaking out of the HIPAA disclosure.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. My thing with this episode, which I really liked as well, I think it was too high concept for only 11 minutes. I think this would have been served much better as like the full half hour, honestly even like an hour special, because I mean the whole fun of the episode is that it's getting close to cracking the code of the whole show, you know. But the interesting thing is the connection that Dr. Shammai discovers first, that they both talk about Perry, because you know Candace says Perry and Doof says, and then he goes, oh, that's weird, it's Perry the platypus. But the fact that Doofenshmirtz's inventions always make Phineas and Ferb's inventions disappear actually has nothing to do with the fact that Perry is involved with both, you know? That is like a complete coincidence. So, you know, it's like in universe that actually is just a crazy coincidence. Like the mysterious force that is, you know, referenced in this episode and many others is literally like it doesn't actually exist in universe. It's only to be found in the Phineas and Ferb writer's room in the real world, you know? So it's kind of like, yeah, okay, so this invention makes that invention or like disappear every day, and the platypus also happens to be in both places at once. But I'm still kind of hazy about like, all right, what's he proving? Like he's pointing at an extremely crazy coincidence, but there's not actually any like substance there to be discovered.
Well,
you know?
I think the thing that he tries to delve into is that, like, he initially doesn't believe Candace or Doofenshmirtz that the things that they're saying are real, the same way that, like, Linda or Charlene don't believe Candace and Doof, respectively. So I feel like he's trying to prove that, like, oh, they're not just hallucinating, they're not imagining this, everything they're saying is real, these things that are happening are insane, and I need to show the world that these insane things are happening because nobody is focusing on this.
It's because the world of Danville is insane, because the tri-state area is a very strange place where strange things happen, and people just kind of write it off. On the point of the writer's room, it kind of reminds me of whenever Tom Ska has done a video, like, kind of deconstructing his Astif movie series. He's like, and in this world, I am God. So it's like the writer's room is like the writer's room is the mysterious force. Like they are, or I guess in the case of seasons 1 through 4, the storyboard artists are the mysterious force. They're the ones that are figuring things out. They are they are the design of the show, essentially.
Which is why I think that like the logical conclusion of Phineas and Ferb, when it does actually end for good one day, it can only possibly be materialized with Candace and Dr. Doofenshmirtz confronting Dan and Swampy in the real world.
It's going to be like a She-Hulk moment where they go and talk to Dan and Swampy.
I love that. Honestly, I love that.
Yeah, they're going to team up. They're going to figure it out together. That's what's going to happen. They're going to somehow force them to stop the show and stop torturing them. That's the finale we're going to get at the end of like season 10.
That's the theatrical movie finally. That's when the theatrical movie finally happens.
Yeah, so with the real world's cartoon crossover. That's what it's got to be.
I gotta say, Alex, to your point about wishing that this episode was longer, while I do think it could have extended into a longer sequence, I was so impressed with how well paced this episode was, because it has so many moving parts, and yet I feel like each one of them was given the proper time. Like, because we have the therapist like introducing his lecture. We have the flashback to the reveal that Candace and Doofenshmirtz are both going to the same therapist, which is inherently funny. We have the whole sequence where it sort of becomes like a film noir detective movie for a moment, where the therapist is just like trying to like piece these things together. We have the interrogation scene with the Flynn Fletcher family. That was one of my favorite moments.
That scene that makes such good use of the entire cast.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I feel like if you were reading the script and there were no character names, you would still know exactly who was saying.
It's just perfect. You have Buford being like, "I ain't talking to no shrinks." Isabella's just complimenting Phineas, and then Baljeet has like a very introspective read on why Candace is unhappy as a person.
I think that the funniest
blinks.
of all of those was Lawrence to me. Maybe they get it from me. I'm a bit of a tinkerer.
I'm something of a tinkerer myself.
I love that Lawrence is like
I'm a bit
aware
of
of
a
what Phineas and Ferb do.
myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the all of those things happen. They have the interrogation scene. They have Phineas and Ferb's invention itself, the disco blimp, which is, you know, not focused on very long. You get a moment with Alka, and then you get the conclusion. And all of this fit in 11 minutes, I think, so seamlessly. Yes, I think they could have extended it into a longer episode, but I think they knew from the start that this was not actually going to change the status quo of the series. It's just kind of like a very funny what if. So to me, with that goal, I thought it was pretty perfection.
By the way, side note, at this point, has Carl appeared in every episode?
I think so.
I think
for
even by
him.
like the end of the original run, it was very rare that there would be anything going on with Perry in the lair that Carl wasn't involved in.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a few episodes where it's just Monogram,
Well-
but I feel like Carl mostly just shows up
But
so
that
they
is what's
have
so
a
surprising.
foil for Monogram to have some jokes.
Well, what's so surprising to me, and it kind of relates to this episode and the season as a whole, is for how strong of a presence he was in the original finale, we're not getting a lot of Norm. Which is kind of sad, because I know that Norm appears in this episode, but he doesn't really
Yeah,
say
he's just
anything.
kinda there.
But for the finale, he was like part of that core group. So I don't know. I hope we see more of Norm. I know we had hashtag Jeremy Watch, but maybe we should have hashtag Norms.
Norm Watch.
I feel like Norm is kind of a character that is important when they want to bring him in. He's kind of like Stacy in that regard. I think the show works perfectly fine without him, but then when they do have stuff for him to do, it's just kind of a bonus.
yeah.
Jeremy
I think
Watch concluded with, "Yeah, he's been recast."
Yeah, we'll get into that in a later episode. But it
Oh,
appears that
that's
we
that's
do
after
know-
this, isn't it? I ended up watching these all
Yeah.
out of order for some reason. So
Yeah, not quite there yet. We will talk about it. That yeah, I think with Norm, there are a lot of characters. I think that it really works well to be like when we bring them in, there's a specific reason for it, and they'll be important.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think my whole thing about like, oh, this episode could have been longer. It's less. I didn't really feel like Andrew. I agree with you that the pacing was very, very good. It was more so just in terms of like the content that the episode is kind of like coming very, very close to the brink of kind of breaking the universe wide open. Feels like it is a bigger deal almost than they make it out to be. You know, it's almost kind of
Yeah.
like this is such a cool concept.
it should be a 2.5 hour musical.
This should be a 2.5 hour musical, or at least it should be like a mid-season finale special
Wow,
worthy.
sick
You
plug.
know?
well, maybe they'll come back around in 5 years and do another TV movie with a similar-ish plot, but on a bigger scale.
It would definitely be a good foundation for that.
If you couldn't tell, I'm kind of referencing how Candace Against the Universe has a similar plot to Unfair Science Fair.
Yeah. Where, she
Kind of
becomes
does.
queen of another planet.
She just really has that alien royalty look. What can I say?
She does.
Yeah.
She does. It's the neck. It's all on the coup de crayon.
I want to point out that this is the first episode of the series that was written by Olivia Olson in partnership with Martin Olson, her dad. And I think for this being the first episode they wrote, like, I think this is one of my favorite Phineas and Ferb episodes ever. Like, I think it might be in
Whoa.
my top 10.
It's so good.
I think it is the fact that it thrusts, like you were saying, Alex, like the universe breaking open, the everything almost getting cracked. It pushes that to the forefront, and yet simultaneously, like, the way they play it for humor is so stellar. To me, it represents such a distinct understanding of what this show is. Even the fact that like they have that song between Candace and Doof as a duet, it's like those are the two main characters of the show. To me, it reads as Martin and Olivia. I mean, I don't know why this wouldn't be the case, but they completely understand Phineas and Ferb, and I think it was just this show at its best. So shout out to them for producing such a stellar episode here.
Also, it's just really sweet that Martin and Olivia get to share this episode. It's a father-daughter project, but it's so much more than that. It's indicative of the series as a whole, and it's Olivia's TV writing debut. Well done. No, both of them should be incredibly proud of not only the season as a whole, but particularly this episode.
So freaking cool. Another one of my favorite episodes from the original run is The Delivery of Destiny. And this is kind of a similar episode in that we're following another character kind of figuring out this world. The difference is Paul is sort of passive, but just, existing in this world and, coming across the different elements of it in the course of his job. Whereas with this one, the therapist is actually like digging deeper and like, wait, are these connected?
Yeah, that's
I love
true.
that.
It's like if Paul, the delivery guy, was just a little bit more unhinged and ambitious.
Yeah. It's always fun when we can focus on a smaller character and kind of see what their life is like and how it's affected by everything that goes on with the main cast. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, this episode, I feel like, especially because it was the first one Olivia Olson wrote, it comes across to me a lot like this was an idea she's had for a long time. Like, and was almost like the reason that she wanted to be a writer on like
it felt
this new
inspired.
season. Yeah, it was like, I have this idea that I think was great and that I want to make happen. And then she did.
And I know she's really proud of it. Zach and I have gotten the privilege of getting to run into Olivia Olson a handful of times in LA, and I think she already had a strong connection to the show by voicing Vanessa, but I think it's been heightened by the fact that she's writing for it. Just every time she would talk about the show, she sounded really inspired. Mm-hmm. I know for Martin Olson, this is also like one of his favorite episodes that he's done. So you just gotta love it to see a writer so driven like this.
And no one understands me. Close to the top of songs of the season. I don't know what my ranking would be yet, but this is
every time Doof and Candace sing together, it's great. It's only happened like twice.
Yeah.
This is like the sad version of When Tomorrow Is This Morning Again.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I was reminded of tomorrow when tomorrow is this morning again as well.
Do we know who's doing the female backing vocals for the songs now? Because I don't think Elsie Powell is back.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It sounded great though. Like it still sounded how I would expect it to sound in a Phineas and Ferb song.
Wait, to try and figure out that, I just Googled "No One Understands Me" without contextualizing. I was looking for a Phineas and Ferb song, and it's brought me to like all like these Reddit and Quora, a bunch of lonely people looking for assistance. So
it's like, do you need therapy?
Good job, man. But no, I want to shout out the voice actor who plays Dr. Shammai. It's a guy named Brendan Hunt, and he's a character actor. He's been in a lot of sitcoms, co-creator of Ted Lasso. I don't know if y'all are Community fans, but he's the hitchhiker in that episode where Jeff and the Dean sing "Kiss from a Rose."
Oh, that's
and
him?
He gives such a good performance in this episode. Clearly doing a character voice, committing to it.
Is he British?
I don't think so. Let me check.
He fooled me.
No, he's American. He did a great job, but I think he might like British culture because he did create Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
But shout out Brendan Hunt.
The backup vocals for "No One Understands Me" were done by Montreal's own Beverly Staunton, also the singer of "Fish Out of Water" and "Unsung Hero."
Oh, okay, that's great. I could totally hear that.
Yeah.
Going back to this therapist for a second, I really want to focus on how much I love the scene where he's like piecing together his theory about Candace and Doofenshmirtz, where he's making that like conspiracy board in his room. I thought that this was an example of the artists on the show just having so much fun putting in so many gags. It felt like, it was kind of just like a lot of fan service, but I feel like with the context in which they set it up, it was totally earned and warranted. So you get this giant conspiracy board with like Ducky Momo and Meep and like Klimpaloon, and they have one thing that I noticed is there's a sketch of Phineas on the board that's like that initial napkin drawing of Phineas that Dan Povenmire did.
The original sketch.
Yeah, I think it's like redrawn, but that's definitely a reference to that. I love the writing he has on the wall that's like, they don't do much. It reminded me of and then at the end it's, what if they do much? It reminded me, I don't know if you guys have ever played Portal, but there's like writings on the wall inside Aperture Science, the like science facility in that game, of just like the crazed writings of a scientist who's been stuck in that building for years, and it's like, the cake is a lie, and it reminded me exactly of that.
Which I think that might in and of itself be a reference to like The Shining, like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past Phineas and Ferb for another Shining reference, because they've definitely done a few of those. there's like the reference to the chicken replacinator. I really love the gag. It's so quick because again this episode is so rapidly paced. But the doctor, he orders a pizza and then he immediately dumps the pizza out of the box. He just wants the box itself so he can make a diorama of like the backyard beach. Mm-hmm. And God, I just thought that sequence was so funny to watch. I think it was one of like 3 stellar sequences in this episode.
Yeah, that moment in particular with the pizza box felt very Nathan Fielder to me. And maybe it's just because I finished watching the rehearsal, but It's like, I needed a pizza box, so I ordered a pizza type of thing.
Shout out the rehearsal.
The plan. Analyze a teenage girl and analyze a scientist and see how they connect.
Eating all of the popsicles just to get the popsicle sticks. Why didn't we just buy popsicle sticks? Because that would have been too easy.
You know, now that you say that out loud, I feel like Nathan Fielder has a lot of similarities to Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
He does. That is a really, really good call, actually.
I'm thinking of there's an episode of Nathan For You where he tries to reinvigorate the business of a gift shop in Hollywood. So he pretends that there's a film shoot happening there and he hires like a fake Johnny Depp impersonator, and then he gets random citizens to be extras by going into the store and spending real money on souvenirs. Like that's a Dr. Doofenshmirtz scheme.
That is a Dr. Doofenshmirtz. The only difference is Dr. Doofenshmirtz like talks a lot and has a very like unique voice, and Nathan Fielder's just very monotone and normal about the whole thing. That really is the only difference.
So if you like Phineas and Ferb, check out Nathan For You and/or The Rehearsal.
Yeah, Nathan For You is definitely more in line with like the Doofenshmirtz schemes, but The Rehearsal is a fantastic show as well. One of the best. Yeah. Anyway, there's another part of this episode that was again very quick, but like the Alka stuff with Monogram and Carl, that they're like burning everything and shredding papers because the therapist is gonna blow the lid off the operation. And I just couldn't help but thinking like, if this organization is fragile enough that Dr. Doofenshmirtz being honest with his therapist about Perry the Platypus come to thwart my schemes could lead to like, we have to literally destroy all of our confidential documents. It felt a tad dramatic. And that was one of the things where I'm like, oh man, if we had just made the episode a little bit longer, we could have spent a little bit more time on that,
I think, I really loved that gag. I love the visual of Monogram, like, physically smashing computers as though that is what will get rid of the evidence and being like, keep shredding, Carl. But yeah, I do think it's a gag where if you think about it too long, it kind of falls apart. Like, because we've seen, like, love muffin conventions and, like, public appearances of the agents and their respective villains. It doesn't make sense, but I feel like that one was just kind of played for the laughs.
Yeah, also, I like the fact
that building has a very public sign.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's pay no attention to the sign.
Pay no attention to the sign.
It almost reads as if like the big secret of Alka is that Perry makes Doofenshmirtz's inventions destroy Phineas and Ferb's inventions. That's almost how it comes across, which is not true. But anyway, yeah, good gag, funny visual anyway.
What's another component? Sorry, I have so many notes here. I'm trying to look at something else that I want to get into. I wrote woke Monogram. The reason I wrote that is in the lair scene where he's like telling Perry that Doofenshmirtz is now going to therapy. He's like, and if that's true, we fully support him and hope that he gets the help that he needs. I just love that little touch right there.
It felt like periodical throughout the episode that they're like, all right, we have to make sure that we make clear that, going to therapy is a good thing. And I think the funniest instance of that was right at the beginning when Linda is like about to make this whole speech about like how she's so proud of Candace, and she is like, shut up! I don't have time for this.
Yeah, I think this show in general, it does a good job of normalizing things that like might be a little bit stigmatized. I know it was a really big push in the original run of the series for like Vanessa having divorced parents to just be kind of played up as normal. And like, yeah, there's comedy that comes from the fact that they're divorced, but it doesn't portray it as an inherently negative thing. And I feel like this episode, even though the joke revolves around them going to therapy, the joke is not that they are going to therapy. It's a nuance, but I think it's an important one, and I respect the show for sort of emphasizing that.
On the other hand, it is kind of crazy how like the first and so far only instance of Phineas Ferb talking about going to therapy, it turns out that this therapist is goes insane at the end. It is crazy.
But he goes insane in the way that like Candace does. Like, it's justified.
Yeah.
Yeah. The show itself like gaslights him into thinking he's insane.
Yeah, that's what's fun about that's what's really fun about the twist, because he kind of has to go insane at the end and be like carried away for the equilibrium of the universe to remain, because otherwise he's just going to keep trying to crack the case open, but now he's just gone crazy, out of the picture.
The mysterious force can extend to those beyond Candace and Doofenshmirtz if it affects Candace and Doofenshmirtz.
Yes. And I like how Candace at the end is like, I feel great.
Yeah. No, okay, I love Candace in this season in general. I feel like going back to what we've talked about in some of the earlier episodes of this podcast, the nuances they're putting into character development, like obviously Candace still has the goal of busting her brothers, but it is a little bit different. Like in this episode, she's not upset that the thing got destroyed. She feels validated by the fact that somebody else sees her. And I think that's so important, because Candace trying to bust her brothers was never actually about getting Phineas and Ferb in trouble. It's just she wants to feel seen and validated. And that's something that Baljeet kind of points out earlier in the episode. But the fact that the takeaway from all of this is that she felt good, I thought that was such a brilliant choice. And again, just shows a really strong understanding of Candace's character.
You're probably going to reference it in like every episode of this podcast, but the running gag of the Red Bull hot tub being mentioned once again, I love that so much.
Yeah. I
love that they just decided that would be a runner in this season, I guess.
It almost has the energy that they came up with that while they were trying to come up with Phineas and Ferb's inventions in the writer's room itself. Like, one of the writers probably was just like, what about a bread bowl hot tub? And all the other writers thought it was kind of stupid, so they just sort of made Buford the stand-in for that. That's what it reads to me.
Well, and it's a submarine sandwich submarine.
Poor girl.
Submarine sandwich submarine. Candace is like, this is the stupidest thing they've ever done.
It kind of reads to me as if they kind of went through the same thing in the writer's room, where everyone was like, yeah, we'll get to that one eventually. And it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back.
They'll eventually make a giant robot dog.
They'll eventually make a Red Bull hot tub.
Red Bull?
Chandler, you're our guest, so is there anything else you wanna point out?
I mean, just in general, it feels like we never left. Like, this show is still just as good as ever. Comparing it to, like, I loved Milo, obviously. I loved how they were able to be a bit more, they had a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? It was experimental. Milo was kind of an experimental project for them, because they were able to do more, like, serialization and have stuff play into the next, while still also having it be episodic. And they continued with that with Hamster and Gretel. Of course, not with Swampy, but still Dan and the crew continuing that on. And it feels like everything that they've been doing has been leading to them coming back to Phineas and Ferb and being able to just bring their A game and have so much fun with it once again. And it's great. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely feels like the space away from Phineas and Ferb and some of their other experiences sort of informed what this new season would look like. Yeah, it veers away from its original genre occasionally. It veers away from its tropes, but like at its heart, it still is Phineas and Ferb. So, we said this on a previous episode, but just I think it feels richer as a whole, and that's really good to see.
Yeah. It really does feel like the time away has helped. It feels like what they've learned from doing Milo and Hamster Gretel, and even doing Candace Against the Universe has really helped. I mean, I think the fact I remember when they first announced that they were doing seasons 5 and 6, and they said that they were establishing a writer's room instead of going back to having it be board driven. I think that gives the show a little bit of a different energy, because it's focused on the writing first and then you go into the boards. But I think that helps a lot. I think it helps the show actually be a lot more character driven, which is not to say that they didn't still do character driven stuff in the original run of the show, but it's easier to do concept episodes like this when you're starting with the script as opposed to starting with the boards. I think, maybe. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are differences that come from it. I haven't noticed a ton of them, other than maybe the fact that, like, I think the dialogue's really sharp, and that probably helped.
Yeah.
But I think they're clearly still working very closely with a storyboard artist. Just this episode as an example, like how many background gags there were.
whatever you start with, you're still going to have a lot of back and forth between the writing team and the storyboard team.
For sure.
Because that's the kind of stuff they would do on because Molly McGee was also script driven, but the board artists would still add stuff. That's where the gag with the dead birds turning into ghosts came from, and that became a running gag. That was originally a one-off, and it just became a running gag. So stuff like that is the kind of stuff that Phineas and Ferb is built on, and we're still getting stuff like that. We're still getting all sorts of just great visual gags in addition to just really, really sharp character writing.
I agree. We love to see it.
All right, one last question before we close this puppy out. I want everyone's answer. If you were inside a flying disco ball and you could only had time to dance to one song, what song are you picking?
Snacks by Linda.
Disco Miniature Golfing Queen, because it's 55 seconds and I don't like dancing.
You don't like dancing?
I don't.
Probably something by ABBA as my actual answer.
I thought you picked Snacks
September.
by Linda.
September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Actually,
I think you can get it randomly chosen 1 in 6 times.
Ha! Sick Cosmic Rewind reference.
The best song on Cosmic Rewind, September.
That's the one I haven't gotten, Chandler. How dare you rub it in?
I have a whole playlist that has all of the Guardians of the Galaxy songs from all 3 movies, both rides, and the exit loop for Cosmic Rewind. And every time I get Disco Inferno, I'm like, oh yeah, this song is actually 10 minutes long.
So naturally, they
really
should
funny.
extend the ride time to match.
Yes, they should extend the ride time to have it match. Well, because it feels like it should be over at the 3-minute mark, and then it just keeps going just the last part just forever. It's really funny.
Alex, what song would you pick?
I would pick either Dancing Queen or Rainbow Connection by Kermit the Frog. And on that note,
R.I.P. Muppet
Happy Pride
Vision
Month.
3D.
R.I.P.
Happy Pride Month from Kermit the Frog.
I can't believe they closed Muppet Vision during Pride Month.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
Well, that's the end of this episode of Afterferb, the Phineas and Ferb discussion podcast. Thanks so much to Chandler. Chandler, would you like to plug anything you would like to plug?
So the podcast that I used to do that was plugged at the beginning of this episode, which I guess we never really talked about how we actually ended up connecting, because I did a podcast called The Podcast with Cool Acronym. I had several of these guys on a handful of times. I have that podcast has more or less been retired / evolved into my YouTube channel, Sunnyland Productions, which, as we're recording this, I just posted a video talking about the Lilo and Stitch remake and how it was really, really bad. So go check out that video. And
if you don't like Lilo and Stitch,
Yeah.
or if you do like Lilo and Stitch,
well, yeah, no. If you the thing is, I love the original Lilo and Stitch. It's one of my favorite. It is basically my favorite Disney movie of all time. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Lilo's one of my favorite characters, and the remake just completely just misses the point entirely. So, I've got that. You can follow me if you're still on the artist formerly known as Twitter, the site formerly known as Twitter. I'm on at Starport97 is my personal account. At Sunnyland Prods, I update those occasionally, use them occasionally. I'm trying to get off of that site, but also I have a Discord server. If you go to my YouTube channel, any one of my videos, you can find the link to join our Discord server. It's a public server. You can talk about all sorts of different TV shows. We have a dedicated Phineas and Ferb channel. We also talk about food. We have not done a bread bowl hot tub because that's actually a horrible idea, but...
Tell that to Buford. All right.
Yes, tell that to Buford.
And in addition to that, everyone can please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel. If you're listening on Spotify, get over to YouTube. What are you doing? If you're listening on YouTube, go listen on Spotify also. And as we say...
and if you listen on Apple Podcasts, good for you.
Yeah, congratulations. And as we say at the end of every episode... Cloudy with a Chance of Mom.
Cloudy with a Chance of Mom.
Cloudy with a Chance of Mom. Sorry that I was so silent for the last 15 minutes. I was just trying to survive. The fever's getting way worse. But Chandler, very happy that I got to talk to you.
Yay!
I got to listen to y'all's analysis of this episode.
Everyone comment #GetWellSoon Zach.
#GetWellSoon Zach.
Get well soon, Zach.
And
thank
will
you.
Wendy Stinglehopper appear in Haberdasher?
Hey, I know what we're gonna analyze. The episodes in season 5. Hope it brings you laughter